podcast. I think this is episode 12. Thank you guys for listening again. Again, if you've just started listening to this, I really appreciate it. We're here in the good old office space, and yeah. Do your headphones sound weird? Is it going back and forth or anything?
No.
Is it weird? So today, we don't have my host here, Melissa and Edwin. They're actually working, so it's just gonna be an intimate conversation. I'm actually really excited that it's just me and you today, because this is I feel like a topic that has been weighing heavy on my heart to talk about. So I don't know. I just have I feel like this hour is not gonna be enough stuff. But to introduce you, this is Diane. Munoz.
Munoz. It took me a year to say it. It's okay.
It took you a year to say your own name.
Yep.
Wow. What is that? Where are you from?
That's from my husband's name, and he's from Mexico.
Yeah.
It's basically like the Mexican version of Smith. So there's a shocking number of Diane Munozes out there.
Oh, you see, because my name, my real name, Adebola, in Nigeria, it's like Bob, right? So Adebola is like a very common name. There was actually a street named Adebola Street in Nigeria. It's really weird because I'm just not used to anyone saying my name that's an Adebola and that's an Adebola. And anybody with a name Ebola in their name, it's like I don't expect there to be a lot of those. It's just like super weird. But welcome to the show. Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
This is my first time meeting you, but I feel like I know you. I've been watching your videos online. You do a lot. And so just try to let the audience know who you are. You are a mental health counselor, correct?
Yep.
And so you went to school for that?
I did.
Where did you go?
So I went to UF for my undergrad and got my psychology degree there. And then I did my graduate degree in mental health counseling at FGCU.
FGCU. And so do you do you sit down with people, counsel them, correct?
Yep.
And one thing I've noticed about you already is you have this sort of social media presence. You have a blog, and you mainly help high school students, high-functioning, ambitious high school students with their problems or whatever.
Yep.
How did that come about? How does that work?
Well, it's kind of reverse engineered. So I used to see, anyone that called me. And then I started thinking about the clients that I enjoyed working the most with and the clients that had the best results.
Okay.
And tried to see what they had in common. And then it kind of turned out that they were all teenage girls that were really, really smart and had great grades, but a ton of anxiety. So it kind of just happened by accident. For me, when I found that you were doing that, because I was asking my friends, hey, you know anyone in the mental health, area? And actually, the videographer, Josh Comer's wife said, oh, she tagged you, and I looked you up, and I started watching your videos, and I was just like, where was this for me? Because the last episode, I was talking about just I'm a very ambitious, I was a very ambitious student. I was involved in student government. I was doing all the talent. I was doing everything, but I was always had this anxiety of if I, this common fear over my head. And I was like, I wish I had you in my life, and it's just really powerful. Have you seen a lot of help? Do you feel like you've helped a lot of people, young girls like that? Yeah, for sure. Well, that's part of the reason I love working with them so much is they get better really fast because they work so hard. So any advice that I give them, they go home and they do 3 times of what I asked from them. Right. And they get better really fast. So it's a lot of fun.
What's the problem you feel like? What do you feel like is the problem between that girl who's really ambitious and in school and doing all that? What do you feel like is the problem in society or in the home that makes that dynamic happen?
I think there's just a lot of pressure on kids right now. And I know maybe older generations would roll their eyes and say millennials, that we're whiny or whatever, right. But it really is harder. I would call myself an old millennial because I'm the cutoff year.
I just read an article about that, how there's the old soul millennials and then the okay.
So I'm a Kurt Cobain millennial, unironically.
Okay.
Right. So I kind of feel like I have a foot in each generation. And wow. I can tell you that the things that kids are doing to get into a school like UF now, for me, that was a safety school. And not because I was so smart,
right.
Because it was a safety school at the time. So
it wasn't as hard, and they're having to get like above a 4.0 and be president of a Model UN, and they're in orchestra, and they're on 2 competitive soccer leagues besides the school one, because that one's just for practice.
Right.
And like, it's insane what these girls are doing. So that did not exist when I was in high school. I literally just went to school, got mostly A's, and got into UF like without even trying.
So it's
and
just
that
like,
was what, when 15 years older than these girls?
wow.
Yeah.
So expectations kind of being raised every time. And so how do you help them manage? Do you tell them to do less, or do you give them tools to be able to balance that out? Like, how does that work? So just say I'm a teenage girl, you know, because I look like one, and I'm just like in the violin club and the coffee club. I'm making up clubs right now. And
it's been a long time since we were in high school.
and I'm just like overwhelmed. Is it like, or, you know, obviously it's person to person, but is it like, hey, you need to stop doing this much? Or how do you help? Because they have to get into school, right?
Yeah.
Like, so how do you help them along the way?
I think it's cool that you mentioned those 2 things, because I feel like that's really intuitive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because it is both of those. I have ice. I don't want to crunch into the microphone, but now I'm like stuck with the ice.
Yes, and there's no editing, so we're
Yep, so that just happened. There you go. Crunching on ice.
crunching on ice.
Super pro. Okay. So that's really intuitive of you, because it's exactly both of those things. So the immediate thing I do with them is to teach them how to deal with stress better, because when they come in, they are like ready to snap. And if I try to say do less, they're like, no, I can't do less. My life's going to be
Get
over.
more stress.
So first we just handle the stress, and then we start talking about what is it that you really want to accomplish, because another thing that's kind of changed over the years is that kids are really starting to focus on external rewards. So it's more about grades and trophies and things like that, and people's approval and likes on social media, instead of like, what is it that makes you happy, and what do you want to do for your life? What are you on this earth for?
Wow.
So maybe I want to be a doctor or a lawyer because my parents told me that's what I need to do, or because someone said I'm smart and I need to be an engineer. It's like, well, is that going to make you happy? And for them, that's like not even a factor they considered.
They don't,
So that's an early conversation, is what exactly is going to make you happy? What are you on this earth for? And then when you have to work really hard towards that, it doesn't feel like work.
Okay.
And that makes them happy. So
And
the
that
things
makes
that
them
energize you. So work just as hard as you are, but towards things that energize you.
Because you're just working towards this dream or whatever that. Yeah, there's this one he's actually a radio personality, but he wrote this book called Black Privilege, and in one of there's a bunch of principles in it, but one of them is, he says, F your dreams as long as it's not your dream. So pretty much like, you know, he wanted to be a rapper, and then he realized that, you know, he really wanted to be a radio host, and he goes,
Too cool.
Yeah, like, forget that dream, like, because that's not my dream, you know?
Exactly.
And we end up working for someone else's dream. Like, for me, and sometimes I feel like it could be mixed, right? It's like, I know that I wanted to be a pastor since I was in 5th grade, but that was also the way that I saw that my mom would love me. I interpreted it as my mom loving me more because she was a woman of faith.
Yeah.
And I figured if I'm a pastor, then, you know, she would love me more. But at the same time, I really did want to be a pastor. So sometimes it's mixed, and you have to really decipher and kind of pull apart that. Because that's the scary part. Is like, you don't know why you wanted to be a doctor all your life. But guess what? All your aunts and uncles are doctors. And, you know, so that that's weird. So the kids that you work with, are they technically millennials?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're like almost the youngest, because I think 14 is the cutoff. Anyone younger than 14 is going to be part of the new generation that they name something ridiculous.
What would you name the new generation if you had to?
I saw an article that said Gen Zennials. Like, that's not going to be a thing. That's not going to stick.
That's like an old Disney show.
Yeah,
you know,
I don't know what that is.
It sounds like an old Disney show that came on Saturday, 6 o'clock.
I don't know.
Gen Zen. So wow. I can't imagine me sharing the same generation as the kids in high school now, because I do feel like there's a difference. But then again, I share a generation with a 35-year-old, and I feel like I'm still different than them. I'm 26.
So you're right in the middle.
I'm right in the middle. So I know I had a little bit of experience of what it felt like not to have the technology age overpower me, because we did have, we had the caller ID and blah blah blah. Like we had to talk on the phone. But I transitioned into that still as an adolescent with MySpace and all that. So I have an appreciation for old school stuff, but I function in like that new school, new world, new age sort of thing. So it's weird to how I identify with, the millennial generation, and how we all identify with it, because someone like you might not feel like you're really a millennial, like the typical What do you feel like is the difference between like counseling a millennial and counseling like a baby boomer or a Gen Xer?
Oh, I don't know. I work mostly with millennials, so I have a couple women that have been in their 40s that have come to see me, but they've been like really, really cool ones. So I think they're like honorary millennials. Like they seem much younger and worked at some of the new cool places where younger people typically work.
Right.
So I don't know. I don't really know what the difference would be.
I feel like people I would say one of the things I've seen about myself compared to like an older person is maybe with some more narcissism, you know, a part of that. Like I'm definitely, and I guess depending on how you would define narcissism, I feel like I would identify more like with being self-conscious about my image because of like Instagram and social media.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that plays, and you said that plays a big part in their life, in their whole anxiety or depression and all that.
Yeah, for sure.
So?
Because it's like, how do people perceive me? Do people approve of me? I want to make people happy.
Right.
It's very like external. It's not what am I here for? And is this going to make me happy? Is this my purpose?
Man, I think that's huge because even as people who have gone, you know, a lot of people who are listening are millennials, and a lot of them are in college, a lot of them post-college, who are artists, who are creatives, and I feel like we're all chasing a dream, like because I feel like we grew up, right? Our parents told us, our parents' parents were hard on them, right? So we grew up saying like, hearing you're special. You know, you could be whatever you want to be, and all these like great, like really cool things that were instilled in me. But so now I feel like it's almost like
you lied.
Yeah, because I'm not special. Not just for any reason. Like in the workplace, I have to do something to be special. And so if I don't bring something to the table, I'm like, I ain't special. What are you talking about? Or you know, like I think what happens is the world hits us. And I feel like a lot of my friends who are in their 20s, early 20s, are having a lot of these, like, realizing they have anxiety right now. They're realizing, like, we all didn't realize we had, or maybe it developed. I don't know. You tell me. Like, I don't know if I had anxiety and depression in high school. I think I was fine. But now, I'm like, I could barely handle certain things. But I feel like the disillusionment is the thing that's taking us out.
Yeah.
The disillusionment with life. I have a lot of friends that were in church that are no longer in church because they were hurt by it, or who started working at a job and they were, you know, they hated, you know, they became a first year teacher and they're like, oh, I hate this, and now they're depressed, or now they're anxious about it. And so how does that work? Like, is disillusionment a big part of that development of mental health? Like, do you feel like that's a big part of that?
I'm definitely seeing that. I don't know if that's always been a thing or if that's something just with our generation, but I think it's because you take a generation of people, tell them that they're special, that they matter, that they can be anyone that they want to be, and then we find out that that's not necessarily true.
Right.
And then there's some things that go along with success so that's kind of like what I specialize in, what does it take to be a success? So it's like there's a lot of things that go into that they didn't tell us about. So yeah, you do have to, you know, you have to do good in school, but you also have to work really, 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 really hard, and you have to stick in there when you fail, because you're going to fail, and you're going to fail a lot, and that's not a message I got.
Right.
I thought when I failed at something, it meant that I sucked, and I was stupid, and I needed to do something different. And I think that's a message that a lot of us grew up with somehow, because we were supposed to get those trophies and awards, and if we didn't, then we were just losers, I guess.
Sure.
So you take a whole bunch of the smartest kids that are used to getting all these awards, and you put them in increasingly smarter groups, and all of a sudden
they're no longer the cream of the crop.
Yeah, like when I was in grade school, I was literally Hermione Granger. So I was like, teacher, you forgot to ask for our homework, because I loved having my homework graded. I was insufferable.
Oh, yes.
So then I went to high school, and I was like maybe, you know, in the top 5, top 10 students in my high school. And then I went to college, and everybody was the top 10.
Everybody was the top.
Yeah. And then I go to grad school, and I was literally the dumbest girl in my class, it felt like, because these girls were brilliant.
Right.
So I can only imagine like 30% of PhD students are suicidal.
Whoa.
Because I think it's just, who am I then? I'm not the smart girl anymore. What happened?
You were a big fish in a small pond, and then you became a regular fish in a regular, or a small fish in a big pond, you know, and that is very scary. So how did you learn to accept failure? How did you learn to accept your weakness?
That is so recent.
Just like yesterday.
Work in progress.
figured that out yesterday.
Not to mean that, like, I never failed before, but, like, I was never okay with it before. And it's gotten to the point now where I wear failure as, like, a badge of courage.
Wow.
Because it's, like, that's my badge of honor. Is like, I failed at something today. I'm awesome. Because that means that I'm trying stuff that I'm not good at yet. And you have to do that. You have to try things you're not good at to get good at it. And that's how you become amazing. And when you look at the very most successful people in the world, they're people that just keep failing over and over and over. One of my absolute favorite stories is Kevin Hart. Because most people get famous when they're like in their 20s or in Hollywood, right? Yeah. And that man kept failing for 20 more years. And then wouldn't you know it, in his 40s, he gets famous. And he said, it's not a failure until you quit.
Wow.
Like, yes, I love that.
Kevin Hart was in the movie Soul Plane. He was in all these like random movies, but like a small little role, you know, for a while. So that is really, and I think a big part of that, you said you wear that failure as a badge of courage, is that's like really vulnerability, you know, because for me, you've heard of Brene Brown.
Yeah.
She is like my spirit animal because she talks a lot about vulnerability, and I feel like, for me, last year, last year around March, I got diagnosed with major depressive disorder. And I was, I didn't believe him when he said it. Like, my therapist, I was like, bro, I'm the happiest dude I know, And then he made me fill out this diagnosis thing, and I scored like super high, and it took me a while to believe it. It took me a while to see it, because not only was there a stigma in my mind for it, there was like a shame thing of like, I don't have faith, or I'm, be positive. Everybody has their own problems. Yeah. And so I think the biggest thing that broke that for me was, one, other people that I didn't know, that I knew, but I didn't know they had like depression, telling me like, dude, I'm on medication. I've been depressed, and I'm like, really? And that vulnerability freed me to go get help, to actually get help. And then me being vulnerable with other people about like, I'm depressed, I'm whatever, I have identity issues. I don't know, I'm not as confident as you think I am, and once, as I opened up myself, obviously I'm actually probably pretty open, more than I should be, but as I got vulnerable, as I opened up myself, that fear of like being found out dropped down.
Yeah.
Like, no, this is who I am. And not only that, but it just, the people that were around me, my good friends, when I told them these things, I thought they were going to want to run away. But they stayed and they loved me. And that was like the powerful thing that changed my life, was like, I'm showing people who I really am for once, and they actually still love me.
That's awesome.
And so that really resonated with me, about like, you wear it as a badge of courage.
Yeah.
Because you can't use it against me. You can no longer, and it's like this thing about, like this faith thing, where it's like, you can no longer use my weaknesses against me, because I've told you them.
Yeah. Yeah, I just had it like, I'm awkward, I'm weird, and I'm just going to own it.
Right.
Because some people are cool with it, and some people that aren't, but they're not my people, and they're not going to want to see me anyway.
Right.
So if you
don't
come for the awkward, stay for the weird. I don't know. Yeah, if this works for you, good. Because that's what you're getting.
Yeah. And so you've talked a lot about helping, a lot of teenage girls, and it makes me wonder, what is it? Because I feel like probably, would you say that a lot of women go to you more than guys do?
Definitely. Like, such a huge majority.
What do you feel like is the big disconnect for men in mental health?
I mean, I think it's exactly what we think it is, that even still little boys are taught that you're not supposed to cry. Some parents are becoming a lot cooler about it, but I still hear, even like my friends, I'll hear them tell their sons, like, shut it down. We'll let a girl cry, but we won't let a boy cry. Like, that's not a thing. So for a guy to admit that he has feelings, and then for two, to admit that he has problems with his feelings, like, that's just not something that guys are taught is okay to do.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's like the stereotype that guys won't even ask for direction. So a guy's going to ask for help with my feelings? Like, yeah, right, that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's kind of like emotional directions. Like, you guys don't want to get... And then, I don't know. I feel like I've always had more girl close friends than guys, because I don't know what it is about my personality, or maybe because I was raised by my mom, but I've always been a very like, let's talk about stuff. And so with the guys, it's very hard to just go like diving in. So I've always gravitated more towards, women as having like friendships with, because girls talk about stuff. It's very hard for me to just have like a surface level, conversation about sports. It's just very hard for me to do. But I just feel like if anyone's listening here, like what would you say to a guy who's just, having these, maybe they're anxious, maybe they're depressed, like what kind of advice would you give them?
I'd say, okay, if you want to keep it private, if you don't want people to know that this is a problem for you, no one's got to know.
No one's got to know.
No one's got to know. You find someone to talk to that you're comfortable with. I would say start with your friends. Like, I think you had said that you started talking about it and your friends were like, thank you so much for saying that.
Sure.
Because you are so not the only one. Just because people aren't talking about it doesn't mean they don't get it. And anything about millennials, too, is that when they do surveys and stuff, millennials don't judge each other for having these problems. They'll say, like, no, I would totally understand. I'd support my friend. But we assume that other people are going to judge us, so we don't talk about our own stuff.
Like, we see ourselves worse than, like, why are we so hard on ourselves more than other people?
It's the way it is.
It's like...
Yeah.
Like, if a friend came to me and told me, I'd be like, dude, like, you're fine. Like, you're going to be okay. And
what can I do for you? How can I
do?
help?
But then it's happened to you. You're like, nah.
Can't tell anybody. They're going to hate me. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's my advice is, like, start talking to people, and you're probably going to get people that are a lot cooler about it than you think. And then if that's just not an option for you, if you get a therapist you're comfortable with, no one even has to know you're seeing this person. And then you can get everything straight, and then 2 or 3 months, it's like a different world. It's so quick.
But what about people who say, and I've said this to myself, like, you just feel like you're being overreactive, you feel like you're being emotional, which you probably are, which is okay, but you kind of downplay it. You like, you don't, it took me a while to actually realize that I had problem. I was just like, no, I'm just too busy, or no, you try to chalk it up to these small things, but I think there's just so many different stigmas that come with it personally too, like the shame thing of like, God, if people knew I was depressed, like they wouldn't even want to, be around me.
Or I have no right to be depressed. My life is fine. Yeah.
And I think also for the other sense of when I told people, there were people that I was like, hey man, I'm going through this. And they're like, what? Does anyone ever do that to you if you ever like said like I had anxiety? Like did they ever like didn't believe that you actually dealt with that because you were so high functioning?
Oh yeah, that's definitely a thing.
Really? And I just feel like that's probably one of the hardest things is like people don't believe you. Do you feel like there's a connection between people who are really successful or, amazing and like mental health? Do you feel like that? It just seems like a lot of the greatest people in the world are, have like the darkest, backstories or internal turmoil,
I think that can definitely happen. I mean, of course, it can go either way. If you've got a lot of stuff that you dealt with as a kid, it can either sink you if you don't get the help or learn how to get past it. But if that is your past, if you've gone through a lot of really bad stuff and you do learn how to overcome it, that's a really unique position because the only way that we grow is by struggle. So if you've never had a struggle before, you don't get to grow much. And that maybe is what people are talking about when they say that millennials are like whiny babies. I hate when they say that. But it's maybe because we haven't really had opportunities to struggle if you grow up in a nice middle-class household with soccer practice. And maybe you just haven't been through anything horrible yet.
Sure.
So why would you be able to deal with horrible things?
Because our parents went through all that for us.
Yeah.
My mom came from Nigeria, like she made it over here, made a whole life for me, and I'm in Cape Coral, Fort Myers, Florida, doing a podcast. Like she had to walk miles to school.
You weren't allowed to complain at all.
Yeah,
were
like
you?
What? So it's just like it's like her ability to create this thing for me, sort of, the ease that she created with her hard work. Sort of now gives me my whole other story of now I have to go and figure out that I have to figure out what hard work is.
Yeah.
Like I have to do that on my own, and it's taking me a lot more to get to. It's just like pick your poison because every generation is gonna have their thing that their parents pass on to them.
The way I see it is there's just different thresholds. So I have a 3-year-old at home, and I'm kind of getting to see like human nature and progress. So like right now, a 10 moment for her where like she just cannot is like, no, you can't have jelly beans for dinner. And then
Easy.
that's like tantrum
Game
on the floor.
over.
I cannot handle this right now.
Life's over.
So then, she's going to reach a new 10 where like jelly beans are not a big deal, right? And then maybe in high school it'll be a boyfriend broke up with me, and that's a 10, and I'm on the floor and I'm in fetal position crying. We've all been there, or it's just me. I don't know.
Jelly beans. No, definitely jelly beans. I've been on the...
And then maybe in your 20s, like your grandpa dies and that's your new 10. So we keep hitting those thresholds. So I don't think there's any judgment of where's your 10 right now. If you're at a place where it's like, I can't deal with this, no judgment, man. This is the worst thing you've been through. No big deal.
But people, we don't do that, though. It's like, I go, well, what about the kids in Africa who are starving? It's like,
They're pretty tough. They're tougher than we are, okay?
Yeah, because we compare our problems to people. And we go, because even for me and my friends, like, both my parents have passed away. And, I think a lot of times my friends don't even want to talk about their problems because they feel like, well, my parents are still alive. And I'm like, dude, don't ever compare. And I did that when my dad passed away. One of my pastor friends was trying to console me and help me, and I did a really, really bad thing. And I said, you don't even freaking know what it's like. And I put that on him because I was like, your problems, the worst thing you ever had to deal with is this, and it's not fair. It's it's your threshold,
Yep.
It's like yoga, where you this hurts for me, but you could put your foot on your head, but it's a different.
And that person can do that because they've been doing it for a long time.
Right. Yeah. I have a question.
Yeah.
What do you think about this new Netflix series, 13 Reasons? Did you watch that?
Okay, so in true nerd form, I read the book, but I haven't seen it yet.
Oh, God. Oh, you were one of those in 5th grade where you read all the Harry Potter books first. And then when the movie came out, you're like, I haven't seen the movies yet, but I read the books.
Yes, except I was 22.
Wait, how old are you?
I'm 35, so I'm like the oldest possible millennial. So I was working, this is kind of interesting. I was working night shift at a maximum security mental hospital.
What?
So, So I had 8-hour shift where I needed to be alert, but I didn't have anyone to talk to. So I read each Harry Potter book in like a single night. So I read them all in a week.
Hold up. We got to stop here.
That wasn't the interesting part? We're off of Harry Potter now?
No. I want to know about the mental institution thing.
Yeah, that was my first job out of college.
So you were dealing with like large forms of psychosis.
Like Silence of the Lambs type stuff.
No.
Yeah.
All right, I need the craziest story.
Oh, I don't even know what I'm allowed to tell.
Oh, yeah. You can't.
And then if I did tell, you would get upset because people, I think they're like really interesting stories and people look horrified when I tell them things. So I don't even know what's funny.
Okay.
My sense of humor is so messed up.
Podcast
now.
Over. Sorry, that was too much. Yeah. We are done. Okay, so 13 Reasons Why. There's like a lot of talk about that whole, I haven't watched it because for all the bad things I've heard about it, I'm scared to watch it.
Yeah.
So I just stayed away from it. But what I've heard about it is that it glorifies suicide, and the girl in the movie or the series blames her problems on other people.
It's been a couple years since I read it, so it's not super fresh. But there might be differences between the show and the book. I don't remember it necessarily glorifying her suicide. If anything that I took away of being glorified was that she finally had a voice. Yeah. And of course, as like a professional that tries to help girls like this, it's like want to just scoop her up, and like I wish that she could have had her voice before. Wow. Because I think that was the key, and I think that's what's maybe resonating with girls right now is that ability to have a voice and be heard. Because maybe when girls are alive and complaining, people minimize it or blow it off. But because the girl was dead, we elevate people, and she actually got to speak. And I just wish that it was possible to just do that girls could speak and say, I'm having these things are happening to me, and to have people actually listen to them. Wow. But I think that's maybe what the glorifying part is, that girls just want a voice.
Because what I know is that, in the tapes that she left, for the people, one, it's like, yeah, now they're hearing it, but she's dead. And it's like, I don't know, whatever the outcome was of that, it just seems like, man, if I saw that and I saw how much people care, if I saw that and I saw how much the people in the aftermath of it cared about her now, it would make me be like, well, dang, like that actually worked. I just that stuff scares me because I know what that feels like to have those thoughts. But I know, like, I follow that through and go, I can't leave my brother, right? My brother is my best friend, and I got to be here. We got to do this thing together. We're going through the same stuff, So for me, it's like that's where I get off. Is like, nah, I can't. But for someone that doesn't feel loved and feels like maybe the people who read the letters or whatever, I just feel like, man, like you said, like I wish you could have done that before, you know?
If she would have, I mean, it seems really rude to call someone who's in that much pain, like, not brave, but if she would have been brave and spoken up before,
Right.
then maybe she could have gotten what she needed.
Man, do you deal with students who have those suicidal thoughts?
Yeah, it happens.
Yeah, I mean, so the other day I saw a story about these two kids in Ohio, who the girl committed suicide, and then 2 days later the boyfriend did.
Yeah.
And what's your take on that whole thing as far as suicide goes, and is it getting better? Is there, where is it at right now, the sort of climate of it?
I don't really know how the rates compare.
Yeah.
I can't even say that I'm seeing it more or less than before.
What do you think the psychology of it is, as far as, is it that they just have no more hope? Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, depression's a real bastard in that way because it takes away motivation and hope. So even if you have to believe that things can get better, you have to believe that the effort is worth it, and you have to believe that it's going to work for you. So if you have a person who's depressed, they don't have that hope. They don't think that anything's worth the effort because effort is impossible. So they're just in a place where their headspace isn't in the right situation to work toward it. So that's why you really need someone on your side telling you, no, it does work. It is worth it.
It's hard because it seems like you can't rationale your way out of depression. Do you feel like you can? Do you feel like you can, with positive self-talk, really get yourself out? Because there's been times where I've been stuck in my bed for 2 weeks and I can't get up just to go get something to eat. But, like, I could be like, Malik, you can do this. But, there's so many things to live for. And it's just like, it's just a cloud that doesn't move. Do you feel like it's possible to rationale your way out of that?
Thinking is so much of it, and that's a big part of it, at least the kind of therapy that I do.
Right.
A lot of there's different approaches, and a lot of therapists do use your thoughts to change it, but it just depends how depressed we're talking. So if we're talking like that functioning depression,
Right.
I think thoughts can totally change that track for you. But if you've got a person who can't get out of bed for 2 weeks, you might need someone to kind of help move you along. So I can think about it like physical therapy, where if you're in a place where you can kind of do it on crutches first, cool. But if you're in a place where you've been bedridden for a couple months, like, you're going to need someone like holding you up while you're doing that, cheering you on from the sides. And
sort of scaffolding your way to that.
So it just depends how much help you're needing, but it's always possible to get better. And that's the takeaway for kids is it's so hard when you're 16 to think like in 2 years everything could be different. Because remember how long a school year was? And now years just blow by, right?
Now it's like...
So to tell them like, no, you'll be out of high school in 2 years and everything's going to be great. I don't even know if that's a possible amount of time for them because it just seems like it's so long.
Yeah.
But it's true. If they hang in there, life gets really great.
This too shall pass.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel like depression is a chemical thing? Because I know a lot of people who would dismiss, the chemical part of because and correct me if I'm wrong, I've heard that depression is there's a feeling part of it, like to say you could be depressed for a small amount of time, like everyone feels depressed at some point, but then there's like the chemical, your body isn't making enough. Is that like a consensus around the board that it's a chemical imbalance, a physical thing?
I don't think they 100% know what goes into it. They're just figuring out some of the factors and some correlations, but I don't know that they have a super cause and effect.
Cause and effect, right?
Yeah, so they do notice there's changes in chemicals, and then of course changing those chemicals by adding medications can right it. When I was in grad school, one of my professors gave us a book called Healing the Soul in the Age of the Brain. And that was a really, really cool book because it talked about how just because chemicals fix the problem doesn't mean that chemicals were the problem. And the example that he gave, so this is a person who dissents. The example he gave was just because, let's say that a tree has some kind of disease or something and you put chemicals into the soil to fix it, it doesn't mean that the lack of those chemicals was the problem. So that was his take on it. So it can be just removing obstacles from things that we've grown up with. It can be a chemical thing. I don't think they 100% know.
Yeah, because because the medication thing is like I know people who are saying that like you don't need that, and it's like, yeah, but so I'll just be honest, like I've been on medication, right? And what my counselor told me was, hey man, like this is not the answer. This is sort of to help you get the answer,
Yeah.
right? You know, so when you take this medication, it doesn't mean you stop coming to see me. It doesn't mean. So what I actually started doing more, I started going to the gym. I started trying to eat better, right?
That's it.
And then I got to this stable place to where my life was manageable, right? And I was still on medication, but it was still like I had to keep those things in. I still had to go to therapy and talk about what brought me into that. I wasn't always depressed, so why am I depressed? You know, and figuring that out. And obviously for me, it was like a lot of disillusionment with, you know, my dreams and work and people and my parents, grief, that like sort of elongated grief with my parents. And so I had to figure that out, and I still am going through that, where I have to like you can't stop going to counseling. You have to keep going because you're still on medication, bro. And you know, for me, it's like, oh, I want to get off of it. Yeah, but I haven't done all the work yet.
Yeah.
You know? But I also have people who aren't on medication. You know, people who deal with it somehow, some way. You know, so it's just weird. You know, I have a friend who has bipolar who's not on medication. She got off of it, and she's doing well. She has her high highs, low lows, but I don't know. It's just different. Everyone has a different take on it. You know.
Yeah.
And I just it's hard because some people who are on medication feel bad because they're on medication. I know I do sometimes. I'm like, man, maybe I'm just using it as a cop-out. Do you feel like, what is your take on medication?
It's such a personal decision.
Yeah.
Like, medication works, and everyone was super excited about it in the 90s because it seems so simple. You take a pill, you feel better. Yay.
Right.
But, you know, there's side effects, which totally suck.
Yeah.
And when you get off of it, everything comes back. So what they're saying, kind of like the most current recommendations now, is a lot of things you can start with therapy. And for almost everybody, that's going to do it. And then there's extreme examples where, like, you know, you're going to need the medication.
Right.
And that's just how it's going to be. But you still want to do the counseling with it because that's going to make you get better even faster.
Yeah.
And then you might even get to a point where you can get off of the medication because you've solved the underlying problem.
You solved that. That's the scary part, is coming off. It's like, okay, did I do enough work to that when I get off, I'll be functional and fine. And, you know, I have a lot of friends who ask for my counselor's phone number, but never call them, you know, like, hey, man. And I'm like, did you go? And they're like, no, I didn't go. You know, as it's like a scary, what do you think the scare is like to come and see someone like you?
I mean, what is not scary about that? It's like, hey, stranger I've never met. Here, let me unload the worst moments of my life that I try not to think about, let alone talk about. So, I mean, for people like that, I say you can step into the pool a little bit. You don't have to, like, cannonball into it, you know? Like, if you got a therapist that you really like that you're recommending to people, they can check out our website. They can follow her on social media. They can, you know, you can hang out for a couple of months and see what you think. You can have a consultation on the phone and see if you like this person.
Right.
You can commit to doing just one session, and if she sucks, I'm never
then
going
you're
back.
never going back.
Yeah.
Do you see, like, young adults?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So if you had guys and girls? Okay.
Definitely get more girls in, but I'll take guys if I like them.
Oh.
Guys like you that are, like, really cool and are okay with talking about their feelings. Like, I love working with guys like that, but once in a while I get one that's kind of a D-bag.
Yeah. Yes.
Who doesn't want to listen to a professional because you can just get that vibe.
Right,
It's like,
you
need to go see a male therapist.
You need to go see him. Yeah, no, absolutely.
I'm not the one for you.
I take better to a female mentoring me than a male because I have my own dad issues, right? And I love my mom. My mom was awesome, so I'm like, oh, you like my mom. Everyone always loves to adopt me, so but I do see a guy counselor, and it's weird because I see a Christian counselor / he has his Christian counseling degree and he has his clinical counseling degree. So it's like, it's really cool for me to be able to, like, have a faith-based thing, but not only because I've had only faith-based counseling. I'm not knocking that, but there are a lot of times, I don't know, you tell me, because you're a part of a church and everything. Do you feel like, and you don't have to, you're not like, not that you're speaking specifically about your church, but do you feel like sometimes faith, having a faith, whether it's Christianity, Muslim, whatever it is, you think that it can mask some of your problems? Because I feel like it did for me a little bit. Do you feel like that's a thing that you've seen?
Well, I've noticed that the clients that have faith, that's a really big help to them, actually, and having the support with the community, because they tend to have more supportive friends. They have, like, healthier attitudes about things getting better, and that hope of someone looking out for me, and there's a purpose to this, and I'll be okay. So they come in with really great attitudes and supports. But what I do notice about churches that's unique is, like, it's not okay to not be happy, because then I'm not #blessed.
You're not blessed.
Yeah. If I'm not blessed, then I'm ungrateful, and that's a sin. And it's just like all this judgment, that they're more judgmental about not being okay. And what I always tell them is that you're a human. You're not a robot. We're not happiness robots. That's not a thing. You're going to be unhappy. And for the stuff that you're going through, it would be weird if you were happy about this. That would be weird. I'd be worried about you then.
Yeah, you're not.
Sometimes you're just not going to be happy, and that's okay. And then, just because I do have experience with church, I can pull out some examples from the Bible where it's like, Jesus flipped over a table, man. He wasn't always...
He was mad, though.
Yeah, he cried. He sweated blood.
Yeah.
He was a human too, and so are you. So
have you sweated
no
blood
judgment.
yet?
Yeah.
And I think that's the beautiful thing when faith is paired with, like, mental health awareness, is that you're able to see that through Scripture. Mm-hmm. You're able to see the emotions, the passion of Christ. You ever, like, Easter week, it's like, God, look at all the emotions that he went through in his life. And so, but I feel like on the opposite end, when you take, like, the prosperity gospel of, like, God, this is awesome, and once I met Jesus, everything was great, and too blessed to be stressed, and that's the stuff that I feel like crippled my mom a little bit when she was battling cancer. And I'd be like, Mom, are you okay? And she'd, yeah, I'm fine. I knew she wasn't fine. I knew she was sad, she was scared for us, but and so it was a part of it that was beautiful, because she was a woman of faith and she was strong. There's a part of it that just wanted me to see her cry. Mm-hmm. There's a part of it that just wanted me to see her break down.
Just be real.
Just like, I know you believe that you're going to go see Jesus. I just want you to tell me that you're sad about it. I'm just, that you're going to miss me, that you're going to, and that's how I feel a lot of times, even with my students that I pastored. It was like, I was afraid to tell them sometimes that, look, man, I'm preaching this message to you, but I don't even feel, because, and it's something that I think we do a lot to ourselves, because I feel like even my boss, my pastor, was like, encouraged that sort of transparency, but it was just still like, somehow we take the gospel and we can make it very performance driven, and I feel like for high functioning people, we can do that. We'll take anything and make it high performance, and that's what I did with my faith. And so I really resonate with people that have that about them, is like, man, like, I just want to be able to say, like, I'm sad, and it not be a problem. And some of my good friends at Summit would tell me, man, it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah,
just
one of my favorite
just
phrases.
Not good to stay there, and they would say that,
Yeah.
It's okay to not be okay, but yeah, I don't know. I feel like when the beauty of when faith meets mental health is being able to see that sort of beautiful web that weaves through, So what would you give, what sort of advice would you give to a creative person? Because again, I feel like a lot of people who listen to the podcast are creatives and artists and whatnot, or just anyone who is doing something, who's doing a lot in their life. Maybe most of them are probably going to be like young adults. But what would you say to them as far as, trying to balance out going after their dreams, being very busy, going after their passions, and like taking care of themselves? Because I feel like all my friends have this problem of like, either we're not taking care of ourselves and we're going after our dreams, or it's opposite,
Yeah, very extreme.
It's very extreme. Like, how do you do that,
This is the advice that I give, and everybody hates it until they take it, and then it's an awesome thing. 80%. That's my personal number. I give 80%. Because we think like we have to give 100% or 110%, or you're not doing anything, right? It's like, okay, I'm doing the best I can, and the best I can includes showering every day and not crying in fetal position on the couch because I'm so exhausted. Doing the best I can with 8 hours of sleep. Doing the best I can without being so irritable that I'm snapping at my daughter. That's my best. So it's not like you give 100 of yourself to whatever you're working on. Give 80%, and they're gonna hate it and they're not gonna listen, but I'm telling you, that's the magic number.
80% to everything you're doing?
Just like always leaving that little extra. Because here's the thing is, when crazy stuff happens, you got to pull from your reserves. And if you've been at 100% for 3 years, you got no reserves.
You got nothing.
You got nothing. So if you get
so
laid
good.
off, or if one of your parents gets sick, you got nothing to pull from.
It's your emotional savings account.
Yes. So save a little bit on the side. Make sure you're having fun. Make sure you see your friends.
That's so freaking good. Cause I'll crash and burn every. I would say most of my life I've crashed and burned every 9 months of life. Like I go, and my personality is so extreme, so I go like 100%. You know,
Until I can't.
Yeah, and I'll go 100% everything. So I'm like my DJ business, the curate, podcast, friendship, gym, and I'll just all systems go.
Yes.
And then
you're not the only one.
one of them crashes, and I'm like, and then another one crashes, and my car explodes.
I'm a complete failure.
Yeah, I hate myself. What did I do? I'm not doing anything right.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm ready to press the button, the panic button, and my friend's like, look, you're being really hard on yourself.
Yeah.
Like, I know, I'm being really
Nobody is doing that. I don't know why we think we're supposed to be able to keep all of these things magically perfect. Nobody's really doing that. If they're doing awesome at one thing, they're doing just that thing. But then we see them like, this one's a really amazing mom, and this one's really amazing at her career, and this one has like an amazing body, and I want all three of those. No, that's not a thing.
We compare our worst to someone else's best.
Yeah, but the best from like 5 different people.
5 different people.
Not even just one person.
And then that's the thing with like social media is that we can create like this cyborg human.
Yes.
Of like, oh, Jessica's like this, and then Sydney's like this, and it's like you're scrolling down, you're like, I don't have that, I don't have that,
right?
I don't have that,
right?
But someone else is looking at your Instagram going, I don't have that, and it's like,
and they're not necessarily telling you that.
They're not sharing. That's the psychology of it all, right? It's like we're not telling people the ugly.
You're amazing.
Yeah, we're not telling people when it's awesome. We're like liking it, like I like that.
I haven't slept in a week.
Yeah, I'm miserable.
I question all of my life decisions.
Yeah. What about that girl that did that? She had like
the one from Australia.
Yeah,
love her.
She was awesome.
Yep.
Because she was like exposing the whole Instagram marketing scheme anyways.
Yep.
It was like, she's going back to her pictures. And I don't know, do you remember her name?
I don't. She was an Instagram model.
Just type in Instagram model. Oh, don't do that. I don't know. Google, you're on a Google, man. I'm not responsible for what you Google. Don't put that on me. But she's like, millions of followers. And she kind of went back to all of the pictures and said, I know this looks perfect, but here's what I was feeling that day.
Sucking in my stomach. This is not actually how I study. This took me 27 pictures to get this one right.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, if I went through your camera roll right now, I'd see like 20,000 of the same picture until you picked the right one and you threw it through VisoCam and you put the contrast now, put all the... And we don't show people that.
No.
And I feel like... Not too much. I feel like I do that, though. I feel like... I'm really transparent. I don't know. Could you tell me why is it a like a weakness thing, or is it both, like, to be this open? I feel like to even just come on the podcast and just tell people, is that a good thing, or would you say like, hey, you need to be a little bit more wise about that?
I think it's amazing, and ask your audience, because I think they love it.
Yeah.
I think that's what they love. If you came on here and told everyone all of the amazingness that you are, and this is how to be amazing like me, no one wants to hear that crap, man. That's depressing. But you hear a guy who's got a lot of cool stuff going on saying, I've struggled with this, and I'm still struggling, but I'm doing it anyway. Now that's freaking inspirational.
Okay, because sometimes I'm like, man, you need to chill the heck out, dude. But again, yeah, I feel like, I feel like it was very cool that girl did that, because it just shows you, like, and no one's as good as it's just not as perfect as it seems,
Well, here's the answer. Like, we don't remember her name, but there's thousands of Instagram models, but we remember her.
Remember her. Yeah. Yeah, it's so weird. It's so weird. I don't even know, like, how we're ever going to be able to measure the effect that social media has on, like, a generation. Like, it's just too early to tell, because we're already seeing things, but, like, it's gonna change our whole, like, human species of, like, what being connected to someone in India right now in a click of a button to be, and the fact that we're able to see, like, bad news all the time,
Yeah.
And, you know, it's just all these different... How do you feel like social media has really affected us as human beings? Like, have you seen any, like, crazy... With all the people you've worked with, do you feel like it's really changed how we, like, function as humans?
I think it's amplified the problems that already existed. So MySpace came out when I was in college. So when I was in high school, there was definitely
So you
bullying.
didn't even have MySpace. You went right to Facebook because it wasn't Facebook like the college thing, or did you have MySpace?
It was, but it wasn't really big yet until after I had already graduated and was working. And then it was boring because only college people were on it. So any of your friends that didn't go to college weren't allowed on Facebook back then. So like in high school, you had bullies, and I had one too. And it sucked for the 6 hours a day that I was at school, but that was it. She didn't have any reach on me once I was home. So I had breaks at night and I had breaks on the weekend. But the girls now, their bully can get at them 24 hours a day.
All the time.
Yeah, and it's not even just the bullies at your school. It's bullies all around the country that want to say gross things on your Instagram pictures. So it's like a problem that was localized is now spread way out. And we're not just comparing ourselves to the people that we go to school with. It's not just being the smartest kid in my school. It's the smartest kid in the country because there's some kid in Rhode Island that invented some machine that they're using for water in Africa, and I'm not doing that. What am I doing with my life? Like, dude, you're 15. This is crazy. This pressure.
That's a lot of pressure. Or even like a young adult, we can look at like a Steve Jobs, not Steve Jobs, but like Mark Zuckerberg.
Yes.
And all these people that are creating these tech apps. And you're
I haven't made my million yet. What am I doing?
Like 30 under 30, all this stuff that we're like, I compare. Well, what was he doing when he's like, oh my gosh, that's so stressful. You know, you watch watch the Olympics, and you're like, how old is this kid? Mm-hmm. He's 18. You watch soccer; these kids are like 14.
Simone Biles.
Yeah, like what? How? Like, and that's the pressure I think that always existed. Is like, what am I doing? What am I doing? I got to get. You know, time's ticking. I'm 26 now. Like, I was supposed to be,
exactly.
this at 25, and now it's like, crap.
Exactly. Whereas, like, our parents, I think if you graduated high school, got married, had some kids, you were pretty all right. That's really all you needed. But now it's like, no, I have to be bigger and better, and it's insane.
So you said you were bullied.
Yeah.
What was that like for you?
That totally sucked.
Yeah.
It was awful.
Because obviously you were smart, top of your class.
Yep.
And was this girl top of the class? Was it like
no.
Was it like she was the cool girl and you were the nerdy girl?
No.
Okay.
She probably didn't have a very nice life going on at home or wherever. Yeah. No.
That's interesting.
I mean, I was insufferable. I'm not going to lie.
In what way? Just like...
Well, honestly, when you're talking about 13 Reasons Why, I really identified with that book because that was very similar to what happened to me. So in the book, there's boys that lie and say that they've done things with this girl, and then once 5 boys have said it, it's believable. So anyone that lies, it's just like, oh, well, of course she did because she had all these other guys. That literally happened to me. So I got some pretty unfair labels in high school that I didn't deserve or earn, and yeah, so I got treated pretty badly because of that. So I really resonated with me. Of like, okay, so it wasn't me. Kids just do this stuff, and they're now as an adult reading that, it's like those kids are little jerks.
Yeah.
But as a kid experiencing it, it's like, what's wrong with me that these kids are being so mean?
Yeah. You reflected on yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, doesn't everybody do that?
We all project.
This person's not treating me right. There must be something wrong with me.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I mean, I felt like because we had the whole anti-bullying thing, and I feel like the anti-bullying campaign thing sort of reached like a peak, and now everyone's like, it's sort of backfired now, because I feel like anytime you even say the word bully, people overreact and go, because it sort of got overused. I don't know, but like there's still bullying going on, correct?
Oh, for sure.
Oh man, that's.
For sure.
I feel like adults bully each other.
For sure.
People I see on Facebook are like, well, I think politically, we bully each other a lot. I think that's kind of like the main, because there's some times where I'm like, am I getting bullied right now? No,
yeah.
Do you feel like it's like the whole fight back thing? How do you counsel someone being bullied? Like,
oh my gosh, it's so hard. Well, this is one of the skills that we work on with like literally every client. We do communication skills. Mm-hmm. But I mean, there's no easy answers because bullies are aggressive people, and sometimes an aggressive person is just not going to get through. So let's say like your friend, you can be standing up for yourself in a respectful way to your friend, and your friend more than likely is going to be like, oh, I didn't know that hurt your feelings. I'm so sorry. A bully's not going to do that.
Yeah.
So we just talk about different options. So if do you want me to like?
Yeah.
Okay. So like the 4 different ways to communicate, and you're going to hear some of these, is passive, assertive, aggressive, and passive aggressive. So we talk about each of those mean, and then we try to come up with ways to handle it in each of those ways. And 3 out of the 4 aren't good. So it kind of makes them laugh. So it's like, well, what's an aggressive way to deal with her? It's like, I could punch her in the face. Like, cool, really aggressive, yeah.
All right, thank you. So every time, gotta go.
That's one option. So we go through all the different options until they land on something that seems like a good idea. So even if they can't come up with good ideas right away by like their 10th idea, it's like, I think I can do that. Okay.
Yeah. Wow. So I want to play a quick game with you before we go.
Oh yeah.
I'm gonna name a celebrity, and then you're gonna tell me if you're gonna diagnose them with some sort of problem.
Oh no. I'm trying to think if we're even allowed to do that.
No. You're not gonna diagnose them, but I would say, like, not diagnose them because you don't want to do that. But
the APA is not allowed to. I don't know if we're allowed to or not.
If they had a problem, what would you think? What do you think the social dynamic is going on with them?
Okay.
You comfortable with that? You can do that?
Let's see what
Let's
we're
go
working
with the
with
easiest
here.
one. Kanye West.
Kanye. Kanye loves Kanye, man.
Just extreme narcissism. He says, "I love you" like Kanye loves Kanye. Okay. Donald Trump.
Oh my God, I can't even. I shudder when I hear that name. I don't know. I don't want to know. It's frightening. He needs hugs.
If these people walked into your office, how would you counsel them?
I'd be like, that's one of the bros that needs to find a male counselor so bad.
Yeah, you can't help him. You wouldn't be able to help him out.
Someone needs to hug him and pet his hair and tell him he's an okay
man.
person. He needs positive affirmations in the mirror.
Who else is?
Like, dude, you've achieved so much. You're fine. Just stop.
Yeah.
Stop.
How can you?
You're okay.
When is enough success? Like, that's the thing, is like, I heard that after a certain amount of money, it no longer affects you or something. I forgot like that.
70,000.
70,000. After 70,000, you literally doesn't change the amount of happiness you have. But, it's like Jay-Z was talking about that. Or no, who was that? No, it wasn't Jay-Z. It was QB for Patriots. What's his name? Tom Brady. Mm-hmm. There was like this old clip of him talking about like how money doesn't make him happy, but you're like, it totally would make me happy though.
Well, that's why it's so important to talk about those internal goals, because if you've been chasing external goals your whole life of making all this money, but you don't have the internal stuff that matters, that's what makes the difference. Of like, okay, well, I've alienated my family, my wife hates me, my kids hate me, but I'm rich. Who cares?
Why do we? It's like, because what is the money, like in general, like the money that I'm chasing is actually to get something.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
And I feel like if you can already achieve the thing, if you ask yourself, what is the money going to do for me?
Right.
And just go after that if you can. A lot of times for me, if I had a lot of money, I'd just travel with friends or something, like I would.
Right.
It would always be with people. So I'm always around people, so I feel like I'm getting what I want anyways already without being rich, so it's just so weird because we could continue to chase this money thing. I mean, money's comfort, definitely, but I don't know about what do you feel like is your definition of happiness?
See, that's going to be different for every person. For me, because I just did an exercise like this recently, and it was kind of like mind-blowing. So for me, it's being happy and relaxed and connected to people.
Wow.
And being able to influence. So the word I would use is power, but I don't mean like power over people.
Right.
I mean like the power to change things. So those are the things I need to be happy. And this is the funny / sad part is like I've had all these opportunities to travel and have like these relaxing, nice vacations with friends, but I gave them up because I needed to work really hard to get a really good job so that someday I could travel. What am I doing?
What are we doing?
So when I had a friend that's like, hey, want to come to my grandpa's house in Greece? No, I can't. Hey, you want to go on an archaeological dig in Egypt? That literally happened when I was in college. Like, no, I can't.
But you're working so that you can do that in
well,
the
because
future.
someday I want to go to Egypt and go on an archaeological dig, man. Yeah. I can't do that yet. I'm going to do it later. And now I'm 35 and I still haven't been to Egypt. So that's why it's important to know, like, what is it that makes you happy? Because you can have maybe your crappy job that you don't love, but if you're going and traveling and that's what makes you happy, maybe it's all right.
Maybe it's all right.
Maybe it's all right.
Dang.
Who cares what
That's
people think
good.
of your job as long as you're happy and you're doing what matters to you?
Exactly. No, I always feel like, what is it? Happy comes from the word happenstance, which means good, like things that are happening to you makes you happy. And it's like, why is it that why is it that we can neglect our, like, that comfort, happiness for, like, a sense of purpose? I'm sure like you said, you sacrifice a lot to be in the place that you're at. Why is it that we do that? What is it about us that we need, like, to have a purpose? Like, we make ourselves miserable to help people or to, you know, go after our dreams when we could just sit at home and be happy. What is it about us that makes us, like, so... I read this book called Man's Search for Meaning. Have you ever read it?
I haven't read it, and I've heard it's amazing.
Viktor Frankl, and he talks about, like, how the one thing that that keeps us all alive is a sense of purpose. Do you feel like that's true?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because it's like when I quit my teaching job, and I was just pastoring, when I quit my teaching job and I wasn't pastoring and I wasn't really doing anything, I was like, I'm just going to be selfish. I was kind of not as happy in a weird way. Like, I was comfortable, but I wasn't happy.
Yeah.
Like, why is that? Can you speak into that at all?
Tell me the situation again.
So I was just like, I quit teaching and I quit pastoring. I wasn't working really at all. I was just DJing on the side, whatever. And I wasn't really doing anything that meant anything. But I had more time and I don't know, I had more leisure. I just wasn't as, I wasn't as happy as I was when I was working towards something, you know? It's just I don't know what that is. But, because, like, my brother, he's a production assistant in New York, and he's miserable in New York, right? But he's going after his dream when he could just be in sunny, nice Florida, you know? Like, come on down, bro. It's really nice down here. No, but I don't know what it is. I think it's really cool. I feel like we could talk for years about this. We got to figure out something.
I'll be back.
We got to figure out. I want to do, like, a series or something on, like...
Let's do it.
Just how this works, because I feel like a lot of my peers are asking these questions, you know?
Yeah.
How do I find that happiness? How do I, you know, go after my dreams? I'm really busy, but I also want to, you know, have health. I want to be healthy, you know?
Imagine that. I don't want ulcers.
I don't want to sacrifice myself for what I'm doing, you know? But, so last words, do you have any... What do you have going on that people can go check you out on?
Well, I've got my videos.
Yeah, your
you said
videos
some very nice
awesome.
things about my videos.
No, seriously, they are really well done. They're fun and they're informational. And I'm like, this is awesome. So how do people find that? How do they go there?
So my website's DianeMunoz.com. And I've got my videos. I've got some blogs that I write. And I'm in the middle of doing some courses for people who aren't ready to come talk to a weird lady every week.
Sure.
Maybe do it in the privacy of your own house and get some stuff done. So we got some of that going on.
And is that for anybody or?
It will be. Yeah.
It will be.
Yeah.
And when do you know when that's coming out?
I've got it projected for September. So I'm gonna for like back to school time. I've had to deal with stress because that's like the number one thing is I am so freaking stressed out. Until we get some of that off the table, I can't even ask people to do anything else because that's not gonna happen.
It's adding to the problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's your website called? What's your blog or?
Diane Munoz, because narcissism.
Yes, you need to go to counseling. Do you go to counseling?
I have, yeah. I mean, would you, it's like never trust a skinny chef. Would you trust a counselor who's like, oh, counseling? No, I don't need that.
Can't you just counsel yourself? I don't know.
You would think, but nah.
Get over it, girl. Why is it that way? Why is it that way we can't counsel ourselves?
Because, okay, when your friends are complaining about relationship problems, you know the answer to that problem.
Right.
But when you're in the relationship, like, I don't get it.
Why don't we get it? You know what to do.
We can't zoom out. We're too emotionally involved.
You're too in it.
And that's why sometimes it's good to have the weird stranger, because even your friends can be too emotionally involved. Like, oh, you're too good for him. Because they love you so much. They have opinions.
They have opinions. Mm-hmm. That's interesting, because I was like, most people don't really need, like, I don't need advice. Like, most of the time when I'm talking to my account, I think I need some advice. But, like, most of the time it's me talking.
Yep.
And he's like, so what do you think about this? And I'm like, well, 20 minutes later, and what do you think about this?
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, 20 minutes later. And then he goes, maybe like every three times I see him, he gives me like a one good, and then I'm like, then we're in the next 3 weeks, we're talking about that. So it's like, it's not like he's telling me all these things the whole 45 minutes.
Because who would listen to it? You don't know me.
You don't know my life.
That's the secret. Most people know the answer to their problems. They just are afraid to put it into action.
Yeah. Wow. Well, thank you so freaking much. Like, it's such a liberating conversation to talk to someone who is experienced in the field and gets it and is vulnerable about that stuff. And I really appreciate it. Do you have anything to say to the people before you get out of here?
Go do you. Do what makes you happy. Don't worry what people think about it.
Yeah. Do you, boo-boo.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you guys for listening. Man, this has been a great one. Appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys go check out her website, her blog, out her on Facebook. She has a lot of cool articles about anxiety and stress and all kinds of things. I've been watching them all week. So please go check the stuff out. Thank you guys for listening, and you guys peace out. Bye.